Here are the 10 secrets that made me an articulate speaker. 1. Ego. I was starting a new job and I looked at everyone else. They spoke so well. I didn't know what I was talking about. And when I would observe what they're doing, I felt so much more inferior to them. This is what I did. I went and I found the most complicated words that I could find and I started using them. I walked around thinking the more complicated the words, the smarter I sound. But very quickly I realized it was having the opposite effect on people around me. They didn't have a clue what I was talking about, and I constantly got the feedback that I need to speak in more simple terms. I felt like I was doing a good job because my ego felt great. My ego felt like if I knew all of these words, I was better than everyone. But really what ends up happening is no one understands what you're saying, they don't admit they don't know, and there's so much communication lost. The goal of communication is to connect with other people. And if you use words they don't understand just because you want to be perceived as more intelligent, you're going to lose that connection.
Our goal is to make the best personal computers in the world and to make products we are proud to sell and would recommend to our family and friends. And we want to do that at the lowest prices we can. But I have to tell you, there's some stuff in our industry that we wouldn't be proud to ship, that we wouldn't be proud to recommend to our family and friends.
2. Adapt. When I'm thinking of something really complicated and I want to explain it to people, I just can't seem to find a way to explain it properly. How do you take something really technical and then condense it into simple words? That changed when I watched this.
Please explain for us as succinctly as possible. I have a timer here. The rules of quantum mechanics. Your time starts now.
Well, the most basic version I know of is Feynman's version, which essentially says particles are particles and they hop from place to place with a particular probability. And the probability that a particle that's at some place will be at some different place later is given by a very simple rule. It uses a quantity called the action, which is to do with the mass of the particle and the time and the distance. So you basically calculate these little quantities and you add them up. So it's a simple rule. It says what's the probability a particle will move from A to B? That's it.
Can you see how Brian is able to explain something so complex as quantum physics in extremely simple terms? How does he do it? He understands who he is talking to. He understands the level at which he needs to speak for each audience. This is the exact opposite of what we're taught in school. Our textbooks teach us to make the subject as complex as possible so that it shows our understanding. But if you really want to show your understanding, you're able to take complex ideas and simplify them. Now be careful with this. You want to simplify to the extent of your audience's knowledge. You don't want to simplify it so much for your audience that you make them feel stupid. You don't want to teach a software engineer what coding or Python is. How simply you speak varies on who you speak with.
Can you get up? And let's see how easy it is to move through space. Can you move over to that location? And can you come back? Anything getting in your way? Easy to do?
Yep.
That's good. But if I ask you to hold still in time, to not go to the next second or the next second, can you do that?
No.
So there's definitely this difference between space and time, some fundamental quality that distinguishes how freely we can move through space versus how freely we can move through time.
3. MAS. The next 3 tools will really help your audience understand your message very vividly. Listen to this.
If you think about a brand like a bouquet of flowers isn't actually a thing. It's many things put together and then we put it in our heads as an idea as one. When we brand, think of a brand as a bouquet of flowers, but it's your bouquet of flowers. And what you're putting inside of that bouquet are the individual, intangible ideas that you want to associate together with the thing that people don't know about, which is usually your company.
Did you see what he did there? He took something really complex, then he explained how it works using something you already understand. Because you understand this thing, you now understand that thing. To help your audience understand you better, use metaphors, analogies, and stories.
I decided to go home and share the good news with my family. So I got home at about 10, parked the car, got into the garage, and my mother was waiting at the top of the stairs. And I said to her, Mom, I got great news for you. And she said, well, then let the news wait. Can you go out and get some milk?
This is how I use them to explain to my clients how they will get better at public speaking. You know, when you're learning to ride a bike, the first few times you don't quite know where to put your feet, you keep falling off, you can't find your stride, but over time, the more you fall, you realize what not to do, and very quickly, you're riding a bike like no tomorrow. That's exactly how public speaking works. When you start off, it's really awkward, you don't feel like you're doing it right, but the more times you do it, the more natural it becomes.
The analogy I always like to use with this is, if you go to dinner with a group of your friends, and there's 6 of you at the table at a restaurant, and the waiter comes over, and he takes your orders, and one at a time, each of you order, and he doesn't write anything down. He says, terrific, I'll be back with your orders, and he leaves. I don't know about you, but I'm sort of wondering, in 30 minutes, am I gonna get the salad that I ordered, or am I getting meatloaf?
4. Building blocks. You can use all of the previous techniques if you know the material, but what do you do when you're not prepared in the moment? How do you articulate yourself when you don't already have a speech? How do you speak on the spot? There were so many times where in a meeting I would get asked a question and I wouldn't even know where to start. What do I say? What do I talk about? And my answer would go all over the place.
That you feel like you're violating people's privacy?
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of stuff happened along the way. I think, you know, there were real learning points and turning points along the way in terms of building things. You know, it really went from this position very early on where we were just in this college dorm room to, we moved out to California. It was a few friends and me. When companies started trying to buy the company for a huge amount of money, and you know, I had to kind of get my friends together and we had to decide what was it that we really cared about and what was it that we wanted to do. If I knew what I knew now then I hope I wouldn't have made those mistakes, but I can't go back and change the past. I can only do what we think is the right thing going forward.
So many thoughts, but I didn't know how to choose them. Now here's a technique that completely changed my life. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Let's say the question is, what is my favorite app on my phone? Here's answer number 1. My favorite app on my phone? Yeah, there's so many. I like, I use Instagram a lot. Instagram's great. I like, what's that other one? TikTok, a lot of content on TikTok. Spotify is pretty good too. I get a lot of good music from there. And yeah, you know what? I think nowadays there's a lot of really good apps on the phone. Can you tell how the answer was all over the place and it was very, very confusing? I was very vague and it was hard for you to understand. How can I articulate my answer better? Here's how. You follow the PRP format. The PRP format essentially says you state your point right away. The reason you do this is because it gives you a place to start. It gives you direction. In the first sentence, answer the question or make your point. Then you provide a reason or justification why you picked that answer, why that's what you think. And then at the end, you remind people of your point again. This last one, everyone forgets. Why do you want to do this? Because most of the time when people start talking, they don't know when to stop talking. Make your point, provide a reason, make your point again. Let's try that question again. What's my favorite app? My favorite app has to be Spotify. The reason I say that is because every single week, Spotify knows what kind of music I listen to, and it gives me specific music to listen to for specific situations. Their algorithm is amazing, so I never need to search for new music. That's why Spotify is my favorite app. Point, reason, point. Can you tell how much more structured that sounded?
And doesn't that inevitably get you? No.
Privacy means people know what they're signing up for in plain English and repeatedly. That's what it means. And some people want to share more data than other people do. Ask them. Ask them every time. Make them tell you to stop asking them if they get tired of you asking them. Let them know precisely what you're going to do with their data.
Okay.
That's what we think.
Thank you.
5. Bullets. This is such a subtle change, but it will completely change how much more credible you sound. Let's say someone asks me, Yasser, tell me about your favorite marketing strategies. And I say something like this. Marketing strategies? Yeah, I love marketing strategies. One of the things we can do is direct response. We can do direct response like this. And another thing we can do is we can do content marketing. Outside content marketing, we can run some ads. Now, what if I answer that exact same question, but instead, I did this. There are 3 main marketing strategies that I recommend. The first one is this one. The second one is that one. The third one is this. Why does this work so well? It works so well because it shows the audience you've thought about it enough times to know there are specific ways of doing this. There are a couple of ways. There are 3 ways. Which one makes me sound like an expert?
I'm going to divide my talk into 3 parts. Part 1 is the interview, getting the job. Part 2 is keeping the job. And part 3 is excelling at the job, how to become an elite investment banker. So I'm going to give you 4 pieces of advice around the interview, which if you follow will help you walk out of that interview with a job offer.
6. Complete. You now know how to structure your thoughts. You now know how to use metaphors, analogies, and stories to be more articulate. But if you don't do this one thing, people will not see you as an articulate speaker. When I would watch a lot of public speakers, they had that pop in their words. They sounded so clean and polished. What was that it factor? Here's what it is.
But here's where the other currency is now most important. That is the relationship currency. And relationship currency is the currency that is generated by the investments that you make in the people in your environment.
Enunciating the entire word when you speak. When you speak, make sure the audience can hear the start of the word, the middle of the word, the end of the word. A lot of times when we're speaking, we tend to mix our words together, and then it doesn't sound very clear. When you focus on saying the entire word completely, you sound a lot more polished. You're able to relax and think of the right words. A way you can practice this is grab a book and read out the sentence, but exaggerate how much your mouth moves when you speak. If I were to normally read a sentence, it would sound like this. I don't know, is there anything else you can tell me? Can you tell how it was really rushed? Here's me exaggerating the enunciation. I don't know. Is there anything else you can tell me? Can you tell how much clearer that is? Practice moving your mouth more when you speak during practice, and then when you go into conversation, naturally your mouth is going to open a lot more. You'll sound a lot clearer and a lot more articulate.
Turns out most people spend 70% of their life living in survival and living in stress, so they're always anticipating the worst case scenario based on a past experience, and they're literally, out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, they're selecting the worst possible outcome, and they're beginning to emotionally embrace it with fear, and they're conditioning their body into a state of fear.
7. Speed of light. This is one of the most overlooked ways of articulating.
What are the most important soft skills, and how can we develop them? Okay, first of all, I hate the term soft skills. We talk about hard skills and soft skills as if they're in opposition. Those things are opposites. I like the term hard skills and human skills. Hard skills are the skills we need to do our job, and human skills are the skills we need to be better versions of ourselves, and we need both. So I'm going to restate your question, Oliver. What are the most important human skills we need, and how can we develop them?
Not only does this sound interesting, but it looks interesting. Light travels faster than sound. Actions speak louder than words. We first pay attention to what we see before we pay attention to what we hear. Our brain is able to make snap judgments based on our vision. Language takes time to process. When you speak with your hands, you are visually communicating with your audience. One way I like to gesture is I tie my words to my hands. As I am talking, you will see that my hands are guiding my words. There is a synchronization between my words and my body. That makes it appealing to the ears and the eyes. Here are some types of gestures that you can use. Descriptive gestures, small, low, high, wide. Assertive gestures. We need to do this. This is the last time. Relaxing gestures. When we show the palm, it puts the audience at ease. When you're talking, you want to make sure your palms are visible the entire time you speak. And this makes a huge difference. If I said, you come here, talk about this. You come here, talk about this. Or I could say, you come here, talk about this. You come here, talk about this. Just with the positioning of my hand, the message was perceived differently. When you look at the most confident speakers in the world, they articulate using their hands and their body.
The new fear they have, the new response to an email they have to make, and they never dictate the terms. Remember this, your mind is a weapon, and you got to be able to use it and pick that weapon up and control it. Most people are out of control with their mind. They don't point it at something. They let the world point it, and they misfire all the time.
8. Sync. I have ADHD, and for me, because of that, I talk really fast. I have a lot of things in my brain and I need to expel them from my brain as fast as possible. The challenge with this is I speak so fast that a lot of times people can't understand what I'm saying, or I mumble and I jumble my words. And in the past when I did this, I would also say a lot during my speech, and it makes a huge difference. Hello everyone, I'm here to teach you a little bit about public speaking. Hello everyone, I'm here to teach you a little bit about public speaking. How big of a difference does that make in credibility? When you slow yourself down and you pause more, it allows you to think, it allows you to relax, and it really allows your words to sink in with the audience.
This is your victory. Now I know you didn't do this just to win an election. And I know you didn't do it for me. You did it because you understand the enormity of the task that lies ahead.
Where should you pause? How long should you pause for? Pause wherever there's a comma or a period at the end of a sentence. For example, I'll pause here, and then I'll continue talking and talking, then I'll pause again. This makes it sound very, very natural. You also want to be really cognizant of which situation you're in. If you're in a board meeting with executives, you're not going to get a lot of time to pause. So then you have to pause in the middle of a sentence, which shows that you're not quite done talking. If you pause at the end of a sentence, you might get interrupted because people think you're done. If, however, you have time allotted just for yourself to speak, then you can pause for as long as you want because you don't run the risk of getting interrupted. Pausing and allowing the emotion to sink in separates the good speakers from world-class speakers.
One of the hardest things when you're trying to affect change is that people like this gentleman are right in some areas. I'm sure that there are some things OpenDoc does, probably even more that I'm not familiar with, that nothing else out there does.
9. Frequency. If you just do this one thing, this alone will make you a better speaker and a more articulate speaker than 99% of the human population. Listen to this quote.
I've been making videos for 10 years. And so I was making content, I was teaching classes live every single day, talking, giving instruction, talking to people every single day. I had sales consults every single day. And so you have to learn how to communicate with people. And I think that was just a rocky cutscene that only people have seen the end of that journey and being like, man, you're so good at this. But it's just been thousands of hours of repetition. Even in the gym launch days, I had a call that I set every single day. It was open mic, 90 minutes every day, that any gym owners that wanted to hop on and ask questions that were tactical, I would be there just to answer. So I got really good at fast Q&A because I did it all day, every day for years.
The best way that I have found to get better at articulating is to explain something over and over and over again. I've made more than 4,000 videos talking about public speaking and communication. I talk about the same things over and over with my clients. I've done the same workshop dozens of times. And when you practice talking about the same subject over and over again, you know the best analogies, stories, and metaphors to use. You know the best words that land. You say it with a great amount of conviction, and it gets better the more times you say it.
People in the room and 99 don't believe in you, and you just need one to believe in you, and that was him. So you can have 100 people in the room that are watching you and 99 don't believe in you, and one does, and that was him. So, you know, there could be 100 people in the room and 99 don't believe, but all it takes is one.
Here's a really easy way that you can practice this. Make a list of 10 things that you talk about a lot. This could be you, your company, your product, things you're really passionate about, questions you get asked at networking events, and for each one of them, just say the answer out loud 10 times. Just say it out loud. You will find the first few times are terrible, and that's good. Watch yourself saying those answers on video and realize, that didn't really sound very good. Let me try that again. Then you troubleshoot and troubleshoot and troubleshoot, and over time, as you say the same thing again and again, your message gets very clear, very concise, and very crisp. This does not work if you only do it in your head. You must do it out loud. This is also how you get sound bites. You have that 1 or 2 sentences that just sound great, and people quote them everywhere. When you say things enough times, you find those sound sound bites. The more frequency in which you can say the things that you want to talk about often, the more articulate you will get.
Now there's one more thing. One more thing. One more thing.
One more thing. One more thing. One more thing.
But there is one more thing.
10. Osmosis. How do you find the right way to explain something clearly? How do you find the right words? There are two ways you can do this. The first one is sit down and craft your answer yourself and really think about what words you want to use. Pick the right words. Go to dictionary.com, find 5 words that you really want to incorporate, and then try using them as you go about your life. I personally don't use this approach. It's not beneficial for me. I never go out of my way to find words, write them down, and then remember to use them. Instead, I rely on osmosis. I realized for a very long time I was watching a lot of Alex Hormozi's content. The way he would talk, his mannerisms, his tone. And a few months later I was talking to a client, and the client said, "Do you know you talk a lot like Alex Hormozi?" I didn't realize at the time, but because I was watching so many of his videos, subconsciously it just sat in my brain and I just started speaking like that. If you think about how we learn a language, we learn the language the same way. We surround ourselves with people who speak that language, we're constantly reminded of it, and people who move to another country to learn the language, they'll learn even faster. But the moment they're removed from that environment, all of a sudden it starts to fade away. This is how babies learn to talk. They learn from their siblings, they learn from their parents. So if you want a really easy way to speak better, listen to people that you want to speak like often. And a really good exercise you can do, think about a topic that you want to speak about, watch their video for 30 seconds, pause, and try to replicate it in your speech. Then go back and watch it again and do it again. You're taking your speaking skills and their speaking skills and you are bridging the gap. Now the opposite is also very true. If you listen to people who don't really speak well, who use a lot of slang, you're inevitably going to start speaking like them as well. Be very careful what inputs you give your brain. Now how do you use these techniques in your life? Watch this video next. It's going to show you how I train people to use this in their speaking.